So in the first lecture of the parental, we have seen that there are different types of the parental preparations: solution, suspension, emulsion, and the dried powder. So let us first start with the solution as a parental preparation, and this solution is also called as injections. So most injectable products are generally in solution form, and the solution of drug suitable for the parental administration are referred to as the injections. So solutions are generally referred to as the injections. And why solution is most widely used? Because uh, most of the drugs are soluble in the water, and water is a solvent which is easily available and available at very low cost. Sterile water for injection or bacteriostatic water for injection, water it may be, it is available, easily available, and that's why mostly we are going to prepare the solutions. Although usually aqueous, they may be a mixture of water with the glycol, alcohols, and the other non-aqueous solvent. Usually it is aqueous in the nature. Usually when we are talking about the solution, it is aqueous in the nature. At some time there is problem with the solubility of the drug. If drug is having poor solubility, only in that case we are going to add the uh, mixture of water along with the glycol. We are going to add the glycols or alcohol or any other non-aqueous solvent so that the solubility of that drug will be increased. So that's why we are going to add the mixture of water with glycol and alcohol, so as to improve the solubility of given drug. Then many injectable injections are manufacturing by dissolving the drug and any other excipients. Whatever the drug and excipients we are having, suppose we are going to prepare a paracetamol injection. First take a paracetamol, dissolve it into the mentioned amount of the vehicle. Suppose we say 100 ml of the water. First we are going to dissolve the drug. Once it get completely dissolved, then we are going to add the remaining ingredient. Suppose we are going to add some antioxidant, we are going to add some surfactant, we are going to add some any other ingredients. Once all ingredient gets completely dissolved, then next step is adjusting the pH. First we have to dissolve the ingredient, next we have to adjust the pH. Once the pH is adjusted, then next one is the filtering. Filtering means sterilization by means of filtration, and it is for removal of the microorganism and to remove all particulate matters. So all particulate matters can be removed by means of filtration, and this filter is having the pore size about 0.22 micron membrane filter, and this much smaller size of the filter is responsible to remove all type of viable bacteria and all particulate matter. When possible, we can also go for autoclaving the final product. First step of the sterilization is the sterilization by means of filtration, and if your drug is temperature stable, heat stable, then we are also going to sterilize the product by means of autoclaving. Then sterile filtration is mainly useful when your drug is heat sensitive. If your drug is sensitive to heat, you cannot sterilize the given drug by means of autoclaving. Only in that case you can use the sterile filtration. Then we are having large volume parenteral and small volume parenteral. Large volume parenteral means you might see that when the patient is bedridden, the nutrition is provided by means of large volume parenterals, and they may be having size of up to maximum 1 liter, 1000 ml. So some parenterals are large volume and some are small volume parenteral, and when they are containing no antimicrobial agent, in that case should be terminally sterilized. Generally, large volume parenteral never contain the antimicrobial agent. As we discussed earlier, if the volume of parenteral is more than 30 ml, then in that case it is not allowed to add the antimicrobial agent, because it will increase the amount of antimicrobial agent as we are going to increase the volume of parenteral, and large quantities of antimicrobial agent may be toxic to the patient. That's why large volume parenteral generally do not contain antimicrobial agent, and only small volume parenteral contain the antimicrobial agent. So if this large volume and small volume parenteral do not contain any antimicrobial agent, then it can be terminally sterilized. Once the preparation is ready, then we can go for terminal sterilization by means of autoclaving. Terminal, why it is called as terminal sterilization? Once the product is prepared, then sterilization by autoclaving is the last step. So that's why it is called as terminal sterilization. Then it is common to practice to include the antimicrobial agent in small volume parenteral. Why it is necessary to add antimicrobial in small volume parenteral? Because the small volume parenterals are repeatedly exposed to the uh, external environment. Suppose 30 ml of vial is there, and this 30 ml of vial contain near about 10 doses. Means 10 times we have to inject the needles into the vials and inject to the patient. Means 10 times we are going to piercing this rubber closure of the vial, and that's why there are 10 times chances of the contamination of this container, and that's why antimicrobials generally added into the small volume parenterals only. Parenteral solutions are generally filtered through the 0.22 micron membrane filter to achieve the sterility and remove the particulate matter. So this filter, membrane filter, which is having the pore size of 0.22 micron. So this smaller size of this filter allowed to remove all particulate material along with all type of microorganism, so as to achieve the sterility. The pre-filtration through coarser filter to prevent the clogging of uh, the filter. So before going for the membrane filtration, first we are going to pass our parenteral preparation through the coarser filter. Coarser filter means that will remove the larger particle first, or the coarser filter means which is having larger pore size. So after pre-filtration, once the pre-filtration is done, then only we are going for the membrane filtration, so that it will not clog the filter. Then total fluid volume filled into the unit parenteral container is typically greater than the volume labeled on the dose. What does it mean? Total volume of the container is more than the whatever the amount filled into the container. Suppose the capacity of the ampoule is about 12 to 13 ml, and although the capacity is 12 to 13 ml, but we are going to add 10 ml of solution into the ampoules. So what does it means? The total volume filled into the unit container is greater than the volume of the label dose. Filled volume is dependent on the viscosity of the solution and the retention of solution by the container and the stopper. USP provides procedure for calculating the fill dose. So according to the procedure mentioned in USP, we can calculate how much amount of dose can fill into a single container. Although the total volume of the container is more, suppose the volume is up to 13, 14, but after calculation we come to know that only this much amount of volume is uh, we can fill into this container. So after calculation we comes to know how much volume we are able to fill into the given containers. So second type of parenteral preparation is the suspension. One of the most difficult parenteral dosage form to formulate is a suspension. Why it is difficult to formulate? Because this formulation of suspension depends on the uh, various factors like zeta potential of the particle, particle size, temperature, uh, availability of the suspending agent. All of this factor will affect the stability of suspension. And as we are discussed in the pre-formulation studies, particle size is very important criteria in case of suspension, and especially when we are preparing the parenteral suspension. In case of parenteral suspension, the particle size must be less than 4 to 5 micron, and if the particle size is more, it may block the fine capillaries which are present in our body. So that's why in case of parenteral suspension, particle size is the most important criteria, and that's why this type of preparations are difficult to prepare. It requires a delicate balance of the variable to formulate a product that is easily resuspended and can be ejected through 18 to 21 gauge needle through its shelf life. Delicate balance of the variable means what? Means it must be having smaller particle size, it must be having required viscosity, so that the resuspended particle can be ejected through the 18 to 21 gauge needle. What happens if the particle size is more, or if the viscosity of the suspension is more? If the particle size is more, there are maximum chances for blockage of the needle, which is having the size of 18 to 21 gauge. So if the particle size is more, there may be blockage of the needle, and if the viscosity is more, then again it will require more pressure for injecting the parenteral preparation, and at that time patient may feel irritation at the site of injection. So that's why it requires delicate balance of the variables. It must be having required particle size, it must be having the required viscosity, etc., etc. Then to achieve these properties, it is necessary to select uh, the particle size distribution, zeta potential, rheological properties. Rheological properties means viscosity, as we discussed, as well as the manufacturing step that control the wettability and surface tension. So in order to achieve a stable suspension, we have to control all of these properties, that is particle size, zeta potential, rheological properties, and all manufacturing step. A formula for injectable suspension consists of active ingredient suspended in aqueous vehicle. Active ingredient suspended in aqueous vehicle containing antimicrobial preservative, surfactant, dispersing or suspending agent, and if requires a buffer or a salt. So in this way we can prepare a injectable suspension. So what are the ingredients of injectable suspension? First it will contains the drug, then vehicle, and most probably the aqueous or water in nature, and then along with active ingredient and your vehicle, that is water, we are going to add the preservative so as to prevent the growth of microorganism, then surfactant to reduce the interfacial tension between the solid particle and aqueous phase so that it will remains resuspended for a longer time, and then suspending agent means it will increase the viscosity of your suspension, and then it will reduce the sedimentation rate, and it reduce the sedimentation rate, and if requires we can also add the buffers so that we can uh, prevent the change in pH, or which can resist the change in pH. Then two basic methods are used to prepare the parenteral suspension. First one is the sterile vehicle and powders are combined aseptically. Sterile vehicle, we can say sterile water for injection, and powder, they are combined aseptically. And the second method, sterile solutions are combined. Sterile solutions are combined means uh, first you have to dissolve the drug in one solvent and another solvent will be your water. Means you are having two types of liquid vehicles. On one side drug is dissolved in one solvent, and another side you are having sterile water for injection, and then both the solutions are combined with each other. So this is the two methods of preparing the parenteral suspension. For example, penicillin, procaine-penicillin G injectable suspension USP, and sterile testosterone injectable suspension. Now let's see how to prepare. These are the example of above mentioned method. Procaine-penicillin G is prepared by the first method, that is sterile vehicle and powder are combined, and the second one, that is sterile testosterone injection suspension, it is prepared by second method, that is sterile solutions are combined and crystals are formed in situ. Then in the first example, that is procaine penicillin G, aqueous vehicle. In first example, aqueous vehicle containing soluble component, that is lecithin, sodium citrate, povidone, polyoxyethylene sorbitol moleate. So what is the first step? In water we have to dissolve all of this ingredient. Aqueous vehicle containing soluble component. Aqueous vehicle means your water, sterile water for injection, and in this sterile water for injection we have to dissolve all of this ingredient, that is lecithin, sodium citrate, povidone, polyoxyethylene sorbitol moleate. Once the mixture is ready, then filter through 0.22 micron filter and heat sterilize, and after sterilization we are going to mix the freeze dried powder. Freeze dried powder, that is that is procaine penicillin G, which is prepared by the freeze drying, and once it is mixed with the above solution, then your suspension is ready. Means first we have to take a sterile water for injection and dissolve all the mentioned ingredient except your drug. The drug is procaine penicillin G. So first we have to mix the aqueous vehicle along with all mentioned ingredient, that is surfactant, then buffers or whatever the required ingredient. First we have to mix it, filter and then sterilize. Once your aqueous vehicle gets sterilized, then it is allowed to mix the antibiotic powder and your suspension is ready. So this is the first step in which your antibiotic powder is dispersed into the aqueous vehicle containing all other ingredient. Then second step vehicle is prepared and sterile filter, that is sterile water for injection. Vehicle is prepared and sterile, and then testosterone dissolved separately into the acetone. In this case we are having two type of system in solvent step. First is your vehicle, that is sterile water for injection, and the second one is testosterone which is dissolved into acetone. So two liquids are there, and once the two liquids are ready, first sterile water for injection and the second is solution of testosterone in acetone, then in the next step this solution of testosterone allowed to add into the sterile water for injection. Once we add this testosterone solution into the vehicle, there is formation of suspension, because this testosterone is insoluble in the vehicle phase. Once you add this dissolved testosterone into water for injection, testosterone starts precipitating and it is distributed into form of fine powder, and then acetone is easily removed. Testosterone acetone solution is aseptically added to the sterile vehicle and causing this testosterone to crystallize. The resulting suspension then diluted with the sterile vehicle and the supernatant solution is siphon off. Siphon off means one tube is there by which we can remove the supernatant solution. What is the supernatant solution? That is acetone. So actually there is no need of acetone in preparing the suspension, or in case of final parental product. This acetone will not be present in your final suspension. But what is the use of this acetone? It is used to dissolve the testosterone. Why we are going to use the acetone? Because your drug testosterone is not soluble in sterile water for injection. That's why we are going to dissolve the testosterone in acetone, because it is having solubility in acetone. And acetone, once this testosterone solution is added to the vehicle, acetone gets separated and this testosterone get suspended into form of fine particles into the water, and then acetone is insoluble with the water phase. The acetone can be easily removed. So in this way this second type of suspension is prepared. These products are frequently administered through 1 inch or longer needle having the internal diameter of about 300 to 600 micrometer. So this is the dimension of syringe which is used to administer the parenteral suspensions. The internal diameter must be about 300 to 600 micrometer. What happens if the diameter of this needle is less than this 300 micrometer? So if the diameter is less, in that case there will be maximum chances for blocking of the needle. So that's why the diameter should be about 300 to 600 micron. And if the internal surface of the needle is very rough, so because of the rough interior surface there may be hindrance in flowing of the suspension, and because of this hindrance there may be clogging of the particle and it may block the needle, and there will be difficulty in injecting this type of suspension. So that's why internal surface of the needle must be smooth and it must be having the diameter of about 300 to 600 micrometer. The flow properties of suspension are usually characterized on the basis of syringeability and injectability. Means how to evaluate the flow properties? First, by means of syringeability. What is meant by syringeability? Syringeability means how efficiently you can withdraw the suspension into your syringe. That is called as syringeability. And next one is the injectability. What is meant by injectability? How efficiently you can inject to the patient. Is it requires more pressure or less pressure? If it requires more pressure, means it is having a poor injectability. The injection must be having a very good injectability, means very efficiently we can inject it to the patient. So on the basis of syringeability and injectability, we can evaluate the parenteral suspensions. It is closely related to the viscosity and particle size characteristics. Means the syringeability and injectability, they are directly dependent on the viscosity and particle size. If the viscosity is more, then there will be problem in injectability, and if the particle size is more, then again it will affect the syringeability. Next parenteral preparation is the emulsion. As we know that this is a heterogeneous system, and emulsion is the dispersion of one immiscible liquids into the another. Generally we can say oil is dispersed into the water phase, or water dispersed into the oil phase, whatever it may be. Generally the volume of dispersed phase is less than the continuous phase. If we are having 10 ml of the oil phase and 100 ml of the water phase, in this case only oil in water type of emulsion is possible. The continuous phase must be having more quantity as compared to the dispersed phase. If the water is volume of the water is 10 ml and the volume of oil is 100 ml, in that case water in oil type of emulsion is possible. This inherently unstable system, and possibly through the use of emulsifying agent. Generally emulsions are unstable, but we can make it possible by using the emulsifying agent. And what is the role of emulsifying agent? Emulsifying agent generally occupies the interface of two immiscible liquid. Once it occupies at the interface, then it will reduce the interfacial tension, and once the interfacial tension reduce, then the system become homogeneous and it will behave like a stable system. There will be no phase separation. If there is a lack of emulsifying agent, there may be separation of the phases. After some time on standing the emulsion, both the phases may get separated and your emulsion may become unstable. So that's why availability of emulsifying agent is very important. Parenteral emulsion used for several purposes, including first one is the, if you are using water in oil type of emulsion for the allergic extracts, and these are generally given subcutaneously. If you are preparing water in oil, it is to be given subcutaneously only. And if oil in water type of preparation, it is used to prepare the sustained release depot preparation, and these are given intramuscularly. What is meant by depot preparation? Depot means once this type of preparations are injected into the muscles, there will be formation of depot, means there will be formation of highly viscous nodule in your skin. For example, prednisolone injections. These prednisolone injections are available in oil in water type of emulsion. Once the prednisolone is injected intramuscularly, there is formation of depot under the skin, and from this depot prednisolone releases up to maximum 6 months. And this type of progesterone, this type of progesterone depot preparations are generally used to prevent the pregnancies. So this type of progesterone injection will prevent the chances of pregnancies. Then the formulation options are restricted due to the limited selection of stabilizer and emulsifier, especially in case of parenteral emulsions. Additionally, unwanted physiologic effect, there is pyrogenic reaction or and hemolysis, these are further limited for intravenous emulsion. So after injecting this type of emulsion, there may be pyrogenic reaction, or patient may feel some irritation at the site of injections. Then an increasingly popular class of intravenous emulsion is lipid emulsion. Lipid emulsion means fat is transported into the bloodstream as small droplets called as chylomicra. Means in this case, this fat is present in the form of dispersed state. fat is dispersed into the water phase, and these fine droplets of the fat is called as chylomicra. Chylomicra are about 0.5 to 1 micron sphere, and you can see in this image at the center it is made up of triglyceride and the outer layer is made up of phospholipid. So this spherical structure is called as chylomicra and it is made up of fat. Fat means what? The center is made up of triglyceride and outer layer is made up of phospholipid. And it intravenous fat emulsion usually contain 10% of the oil and maybe maximum up to 20%. And what is the use of this type of fat emulsions? Only fat will be there. We are not talking about any drug, only fat emulsions. So fat emulsion provides the essential fatty acids and calories during the total parenteral nutrition of the patient. So what is the use of this type of fat emulsion? It provides the essential fatty acids and the calories. The patients who are unable to absorb the nutrient through the gastrointestinal tract. So glycerol is mainly added to make the product isotonic. What is meant by isotonic? Isotonic means which is having same osmotic pressure as that of the blood. If you want to make the same osmotic pressure as that of blood, you can achieve by adding some glycerol, or we can also achieve by adding 0.9% NaCl or 5% dextrose solution likewise. So isotonicity is very important. If your parenteral preparation is not isotonic, then there may be damage of your RBCs. RBCs may get rupture or it may get burst. Then there may be irritation at the site of injection because of improper isotonicity. Intravenous lipid emulsions are usually administered in combination with the dextrose and amino acids. And sometimes drugs are also added in exceptional cases such as heparin, insulin and ranitidine. Generally fat emulsions are not available with the drug, but there are some exceptions like heparin, insulin and ranitidine. Next one is the dry powders as a parenteral preparation. In this COVID situation, the remdesivir was also available in the form of dry powder. In the market, remdesivir was available in the form of dry powder, parenteral preparation. And at the time of administration, this dry powder allowed to mix with the sterile water for injection and then administer to the patients. And this dry powder are prepared very aseptically by means of sterilization method. So many drugs are too unstable in aqueous medium. So for which drugs are suitable for dry powders? Those are unstable in aqueous medium, or those drugs undergoes hydrolysis when get in contact with the water. Only this type of drugs are suitable to prepare the dry powder by means of freeze drying. So instead the drug is formulated as a dry powder, that is reconstituted by addition of water before addition. As we discussed, the remdesivir is available in the form of dry powder, but it is administered to the patient by means of reconstitution. Reconstitution means what? Addition of sterile water for injection to the dry powder and shake it for some time so that the dry powder get uniformly mixed into the water. It will be present in the form of suspension. So what is meant by reconstitution? Reconstitution is the mixing of dry powder with the sterile water for injection before administration to the patient. Then reconstituted product is usually an aqueous solution. However, occasionally it may be an aqueous suspension. So after reconstitution, there may be formation of solution or there may be formation of aqueous suspension. For example, ampicillin trihydride and spectinomycin hydrochloride are the sterile powder that are reconstituted to form sterile suspension. Means after addition of sterile water for injection, your dry powder may get dissolved. If it get dissolved, means we can say there is formation of aqueous solution, and if the powder is insoluble in the sterile water for injection, then definitely there will be formation of aqueous suspension. Examples are ampicillin trihydride. Then Dry powders for reconstitution as an injectable product may be produced by several methods. How to prepare the dry powder? By filling the product into vial as a liquid and freeze drying. Aseptic crystallization followed by powder filling and spray drying followed by powder filling. What is meant by freeze drying? Freeze drying is used to remove the solvent which are present in your solution. And why we are going for freeze drying? So by means of freeze drying, solvent can be removed below the boiling point of liquid, and that's why freeze drying is very important. If your drug is thermolabile, it is sensitive to heat. Suppose we are considering that XYZ drug is solubilized in water. After once your drug gets solubilized, it form clear solution. And if you want to remove the solvent, means water, means you have to boil this solvent at 100 degrees Celsius. And if your drug is degraded at 70 degrees Celsius, so your drug will get degraded if you are going to boil the water at 100 degrees Celsius. So if you want to remove the water traces, we can go for freeze drying. So in this freeze drying, atmospheric pressure is reduced. So at reduced atmospheric pressure, water can get vaporized at 37 degrees Celsius. Means at room temperature, water get vaporized. So this is the advantage of freeze drying. We can remove the solvent below their boiling point and we can protect the thermolabile substances. What is freeze drying? Common form of sterile powder. And advantage of freeze drying is that water can be removed at the low temperature, avoiding damage to the heat sensitive material. It facilitates the rapid and complete rehydration of the solids. And from an operation point of view, freeze dried dosage form allows the drug to fill into the vial as a solution. So if the drug is present in solution form, it is very easy to fill as compared to the powders. Powders are very difficult to fill into any container. So there may be dusting or there may be lots of disadvantage. So instead of powder filling, we can go for solution filling. Solutions are easy to fill. Just fill 10 ml of solution into given vials and then these vials exposed to the freeze drying. Whatever the solvents are present, it will get vaporized, leaving behind the dried powder into the container. So in this way we can prepare the freeze dried powder. This makes the control of quantity of filled into each vials more precise than filling the drug into a vial as a powder. So by means of this method, we can fill exact quantity of solution into each vials as compared to the powders. Since the drug is filled as a solution, minimum concern with the dust contamination, cross contamination and potential worker exposure to the hazardous drug. So this is the advantage of freeze drying. So despite of advantages of freeze drying, some limitations are there. What is the limitation? Freeze drying is not suitable for proteins and liposomal systems because after freeze drying, proteins may get damaged, and that's why it is not suitable for the protein type of substances. Often the stability of the drug depends on the physical state. After freeze drying, there may be formation of crystalline powder or there may be formation of amorphous powder. So first you have to study which type of powder is more stable, whether crystalline or amorphous. If the after freeze drying, if it produces the amorphous solid and amorphous is not stable, then there is no significance of freeze drying. So first you have to determine which type of the given powder will be more stable, either crystalline or amorphous. If amorphous powder is unstable, then we will not go for freeze drying. And if the crystalline form remains more stable, then we will prepare the we can prepare the dried powder by means of freeze drying.